Noise. Mic'd up. Mic'd up, mic'd up, mic'd up.
Yeah.
Dang, look at y'all, man.
It works.
Woo. You can tell who makes the money in this group.
Yeah.
I went all the way until last night not knowing what I was going to wear today, except for these. I bought these specifically for this event. So, but anyways. All right, Brad. Let's talk about the process in general. Like I said, I'm an engineer at heart, so I want to see this from a 10,000 square foot view, right? So it's a little different when you're doing postcards versus everything else, because our postcards have ballpark offers on them whenever they're sent out, right? Well, let's talk about that. So what is the process flow of getting these leads in and all the way to getting them under contract? What does that look like?
Well, depending on what we're doing as far as marketing, because like you stated earlier, we got text messages, postcards, cold calling. So let's just say we're doing postcards. Postcards pretty much already going to have that ballpark offer on there. So when the seller reaches out to you, they're already a warm lead pretty much. They're interested most of the time in that offer. So you're going to go ahead and try to get as much information out of the seller as possible. Then set up the appointment if you think,
What kind of information are you going to be getting out of them?
We'll get to that after this.
Okay.
We're going to do a role play. We're going to role play for you guys.
All right, so yeah, we want to make sure we get as much information as possible. Then we're going to try to set an appointment, go out and do a walkthrough for the property. Then either we're going to come back, sit down, run your numbers, or look up the photos, things like that. Then go ahead and make that a hard offer to the seller. Get the property under contract, and try to get that contract over to the title company and get it closed.
So, all right, that's for postcards, because our postcards already have the ballpark offer on them, right? So text messages, cold calls, after you get that information, you're going to have to make a ballpark offer, right? What is so important about the ballpark offer? Why are we making a ballpark offer first? Why don't we just throw out something?
See what the seller's mindset is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The thought process.
Absolutely. If you're not in the ballpark, don't even go. Every new investor that I've ever worked with, they get so excited. And this was me too, so I can't say anything. They get so excited and they want to go look at every single lead that comes in. And they get let down so fast because in the mindset, you can just see it. You can see it in them, right? Because when they make that offer, they're nowhere even close, right? So we always make a ballpark offer. If we're not within $50,000, we're not even going to look at it. So that's why we pitch the ballpark offer first to see, because we don't want to waste any time. I don't want you wasting time, right? All right. So now that we kind of understand the process flow, what are the top 4 things, if you didn't see it, what are the top 4 things that you need to get on that initial phone call? There's a lot, but what are some things that you need to get on that initial phone call? Motivation. That's one of them, yep. Anybody else?
See what their problem is.
Yep.
Come on, guys.
That's it, yep. Timeline. Condition, yep. Price. Y'all been through this, y'all know it. Yep, financing. Yep, you're right. Y'all are right. But the top 4 that you need to be focused on, if you don't get anything else, you need to get the condition, the motivation, the price, and the timeline. That's the top 4 things that you need to get, right? So what does that look like? Let's talk about, say I sent you a postcard, or you sent me a postcard, and I call you up. I say, hey, who is this? Who is this? I got a postcard that says you'll give me $120,000 for my house. Is that legit?
Yes, sir. May I ask who I'm speaking with?
This is Wyatt. Who's this?
Hey, Wyatt, this is Brad. Yeah, we buy properties in your area. We reached out to you. We sent out a mass marketing campaign of postcards. Let me ask you this: why were you interested in the number that you received?
I mean, it's in my ballpark, man. But is that a legit offer, though? Like, I don't know you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's a legit offer. Why? Let me ask you this. I mean, the offer is based on the property being in, pretty good condition. Does this sound like your property?
I mean, it's livable, man. That's for sure. It's livable. It's all right. It's a good old house, you know.
Okay.
Livable to who?
Exactly. Exactly. So first off, before we go any further, right, it's focusing on our postcards. Like I said before, the postcards have the ballpark offer on them already, right? I said 120 grand. What we want to make sure they know right up front is that that offer is only for properties that are in good condition, that it's 80% of whatever the software says that the value of the property is, right? And you can adjust that depending on, your KPIs, right? But we just want to make sure that they know that that's turnkey, ready to go, updated. I'm ready to put that thing on the market, right? And most of the time, that's what we get. It's a good old house, man. It's a good old house. Been living there for 20 years. And so how do we get that condition? How do we get that condition out of them, bro?
Well, if you was to say that to me, I would say, well, tell me a little bit more about that. Tell me a little bit more about the property as far as like beds, bathrooms, things like that.
Yeah, man. It's 3-bed, 2-bath, 13, somewhere around 1,300 square foot. Aunt Judy lived in it for like 15 years. She's paying $300 a month. But dude, you kick her out, you can get $2,000 a month on it easy. Y'all have heard that before. I hear it way too often.
So here's when I started trying to build rapport and get the seller to open up to me. So I'm asking as much questions as I can. What's going on with the roof, the HVAC system? He said I want to live there for 15 years. Are you sure you don't want to live there 15 more years? I mean, you're making money off the property. You sure you want to sell this thing?
That's the gut sales method right there. You sure you don't want to live there for another 15 years? No, man, no, I don't. Yeah, so.
Well, that'll get you their motivation as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, we'll go over like good to great questions as far as sales calls go here in a minute. But so before we go any further with that, he's got his script memorized. Like if you've got a script that you're going off of, no matter where you get it, memorize it, because you don't want to sound like this. Hey, let me ask you a couple questions, man. How many beds you got in that thing?
I got 2 beds.
2 beds, okay, 2 beds. How many baths you got in there?
That's a 1 bathroom.
1 bath. Hey, that's awful. You're gonna be on that call forever, and they're not gonna. There's no rapport in that. Exactly. Memorize your script. Ask multiple questions at one time. You see how he said, "Hey, tell me a little bit about the house. Tell me a little bit about beds, baths, square foot." Most of the time, when you ask that question, they go into everything. They'll answer that question, but then they'll start going into everything. Condition, Aunt Judy, $300.
Hasn't been updated since the 60s.
Yeah. That's when you find out about that, about the condition a lot more, right? All right. So, what is the difference between somebody that's living there and a landlord?
Man, it's a big difference. I really like to deal with landlords because I don't really have a lot of emotions and things like that attached to the property versus somebody that's been living there. They think their property is worth $1 million. They think it's the gold mine. So
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the different questions that you would ask a landlord versus a homeowner?
That's really good. So this is kind of going into that motivation too. So let's just say if a landlord's having a problem with the tenant, I need to stay on those pain points. I need to stick on those pain points. And if you don't know how to attack the pain points, simple questions like, let's just say a tenant's been destroying the property. I can say, man, but tell me a little bit more about that. How long has this been going on? Do you think the situation's going to get any better or any worse?
That's a good question.
Stuff like that to push on those pain points. What can I do if I was to take this property off your shoulders today, Mr. Seller? How would that make you feel? Questions like that to push on that pain point.
Yeah, and if I don't buy it, what are you going to do?
Exactly.
You're going to have to spend $15,000, $20,000. You're going to have to evict this person, go through all that. Right. Look, man, I want to help you out because I'm a landlord too. I know how it is, man.
Right.
But I'm willing to evict this person for you. I'm willing to come in and renovate it. Like, let's help each other out, man. What is towards the end of that conversation? what is something else that you would ask a landlord instead of a homeowner?
Yeah, this is a real good question, because this is how I got my first wholesale deal for 10 grand. I asked them, do you have any other properties that you would be interested in selling?
Yeah.
Because when I initially called about the subject property, they didn't want to sell that property. But I asked the wife, well, ask your husband, does he have any other properties you want to sell? So she was like, hey, honey, you got any other properties you want to sell? So he was like, yeah, I got 2 properties that I would like to sell. And I was like, wow, boom. That was a perfect example of that.
And you made 10 grand off that?
Yeah, I made 10 grand
That's
off
awesome.
that.
First wholesale deal?
Yeah, it's my first one.
I made $1,900 on my first wholesale deal. But man, I had to go through hell to get that assignment fee. The less your assignment fee is, the more you're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, that's a
I can
fact.
promise you that. Well, good deal. That's a great question. I have another one that I just put a flip under contract. It's a cosmetic flip. I'm not gonna do anything but make it smell better. But I called the lady, or I sent her a text message, and I was texting her. It's an automated system, right? And I finally got on the phone with her, and she was like, I think she was messing with me over text. You'll get that a lot if you're doing text. But I got on the phone with her, and she was like, that's not my property. I think you got the wrong number. And I've got this recorded, too. I record a lot of my phone calls. So I was like, oh, okay. All right, well, let me ask you this. What did I say? Shoot. Just by happenstance or whatever. Do you have anything else or do you have anything that you'd be willing to sell? Like, do you own a property that you'd be interested in getting an offer on? And she was like, I'm actually fixing to sell my house. Is that what you do? And I was like, yes, ma'am, it is. Yes, ma'am, it is. And come to find out, that lady is actually, if I don't close by the end of this month, she's getting foreclosed on. And so I just put some money in her pocket, and I get a really great deal. It's a $50,000 spread, so really great deal. So very awesome, very awesome. That is like some great questions to have in your bank. If you need a script, just DM me or text me. I got a script for you. But make sure you memorize this thing and just have conversation. Just have conversation with them. Make it like it's just a normal conversation, right? If they answer your questions and then start going into Alabama football, go into Alabama football with them a little bit. You know, throw them a Roll Tide, whatever. I'm not an Alabama fan, so that was tough for me to say. But, you know, just let them go and then pull them back into the script, right? Pull them back in the script. But the only way you can do that is by knowing your script and having conversations, right? Let's get to the fun part. After you know how to have the conversations, does anybody have any questions about that before we get going?
I got a question.
Yeah.
We're talking about the postcards and everything.
Yeah.
I've received postcards and mails on some of my stuff, and I'm like, how did they even know I had this property? How did they know I was a landlord? How do you know who to send the postcard to?
You want to answer that?
What's that now?
How do you know, like, how do we get their information? I hear that all the time.
Well, you made it on the list somehow. The owner. So, but we feel like it's on the title, right? So the mailing address and the property address, we reference the property of interest, hold the price, put the number, and then ship it to the mailing, which will be your house.
The easier
It's
way
all
to say
public
that.
data.
Yeah, the easier way to say that is it's public records, man. I've got a software that's able to pull public records, and you made it on the list. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, you get your property and mailing addresses.
Coaches know how to dumb it down a little bit. You
Yeah.
got to dumb it down, man.
I always think on me. There's no marketing team. I don't know what they do, man.
Yeah, I don't want to know what they do. Yeah. Dude, I hate cold calling with a passion. Hate it. You ask these guys. I hate talking to people. So I'll let those guys handle it all day long.
I haven't received one here in Alabama, but this was in Mississippi, and I'm like, how did they even know I had this, public record?
Yep.
I don't know how to pull that.
Yeah, so we were talking about Nick does it all for us through REI Print Mail. PropStream can pull a list too. List Source. I mean, there's a ton of different tools that can do that. But if you're going to send postcards, it's best to book a call with Nick, and he can do it all for you. Unless you've got a PropStream account, which I got a PropStream account too, but I still let Nick handle all of it, right? All right. Anybody else? Scripts, talking to people over the phone, setting the appointments. Any questions? Going once, going twice. It's a cold room, man. Cold room. Yeah.
So if you're new and just starting out and you're talking to a homeowner and stuff, when you said like, are you a legit company? And you're, let's say, just starting out, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have a website, like, yeah, okay, you have a company name, whatever, that you did for like $100 fee, whatever.
Right.
How do you show them like, hey, I really am going to go to the closing table and I'm going to buy your house? Because I feel like that's where I've lost some people.
You
It's
got-
like, oh, well, show me the other people. Well, I'm just starting out. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you prove to them, other than showing them like, hey, here's proof of finances, here's my bank account, and this is where I'm ready to go, this is my closing date. Like,
Here's my social security number.
This is the title company I'm going to use. This is the real estate attorney I'm going to use. How do you, like, when you guys were first starting out, how did you prove to people that you were actually serious in going to follow through with this?
I mean, honestly, I never had that issue. Nobody ever asked me to prove myself, but
I've had that issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that issue. So for me, I'm going to grab this. I'm thirsty. For me, I always tell them, first off, hey, look, I'm a local one-man band. I buy properties here locally. Me and my family live here. I'm just getting into real estate, right? Another thing, though, but something that I can do for you to make you feel better is I can go ahead and send you a proof of funds for whatever you think would make sense, right? I mean, you may not have talked about price at that point, but what I would do is say, hey, once we dial in a price, I'll send you a proof of funds, and you can get a proof of funds anywhere. Just call any hard money lender, private money lender, get your best friend. No, I'm just kidding. If you're good at Word, man, you can make some things happen. Don't do that. I'm just kidding.
well,
Yeah, that
also
was a
if you
great
have an
question.
entity, they can look it up.
Yeah.
But when they look it up, if you haven't done any deals, then
Well, it's not going to show that you've done any deals.
Right.
Just looking up your entity, it doesn't tell you what's in it. It just
I gotcha, okay.
it shows that you are truly a business.
Yeah, you should. One of the first things you should do when you get an entity, like I see so many people get the little piece of paper that says, "Hey, I got a company," right? You should go and make yourself a Facebook group or a Facebook page for that entity. Put your logo on there, put your hours that you work, blah blah blah, right? Throw up some pictures of your family, just so it's got some stuff on there, right? And that's most of the time what helps me through. But I'll send people my personal Facebook page.
That's what I do. If anybody asks now, I just tell them, hey, you can look me up on social media.
Yeah.
I mean, there's real estate all over it, so.
Yeah, some people you're just not gonna like that guy that was giving me a hard time about our 3 different phone numbers. Like, it was one of the hardest deals that we had. We actually had another student go in, get the deal under contract, and when he found out we were involved with him, he dropped it completely. That was a big mess. But yeah, I mean, some people you're just not gonna be able to win. Some people, right? Get you some shirts.
What about joining the Better Business Bureau?
Yeah, you can do that.
Worthwhile, or
You can do that. You open yourself up for people to get on there and talk bad about you. In real estate, you're going to have people talk bad about you. I mean, nobody knows what you, like, outside of real estate investors, nobody knows what you do. So, like I said, I live in Pulaski. We've got one of them hip Pulaski Facebook groups. I started sending text messages, and then somebody got on there and was like, who's this Wyatt guy sending text messages? And this was like early stages of me. So I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning fighting with people in the comments section. I'm like, I'm legit. I'll meet you at this restaurant and show you right now. So you just open yourself. The more you do that, though, like the Facebook group, the pages, and the Better Business Bureaus and stuff like that, you open yourself up for people to say bad things about you. So you just got to have tough skin, right? What do y'all think about that? I mean, we're not on the Better Business Bureau.
Don't fight in the Facebook comments. It's not worth it.
Not that. It's definitely not worth it, for sure. Those are some funny people. Those drive the views up, too.
Yeah.
Like, John messes with people all the time. He's like, look what this guy said. Let's mess with him a little bit more.
Yeah.
Get him to say some stuff. All right. Good questions. All good questions. Let's talk about something fun. Let's talk about offers. Let's talk about making multiple offers. This is something we were just talking about, right? if you just come in with a lowball cash offer, you're going to be like every other real estate investor in the world, right? Every other newbie in the world. So what you need to do is expand your tool belt, right? Expand your strategies. We come in and we give an offer, and we give a cash offer, we give terms offers, we give novations offers. We just trying to do whatever we can to get that deal, right? So let's talk about, let's use that as an example, that role play we just done. He sent me a card for $120,000, or I sent him a card for $120,000, right? Mm-hmm. Our max offer price is around, let's say, 100. And how would you pitch those offers?
So, y'all know what terms are, first off? No.
Nope.
Terms is talking the seller and the seller financing the property to me. So instead of me going to the bank, they're carrying the mortgage for me. So a lot of times, once again, the postcards are going to be based on 80% market value, right, of the property. Well, to refinance, the most you're going to be able to pull out in most cases is 80% of loan to value. So depending on the house, and you have to run your numbers correctly, but this is just an example. So we're going to go with $120,000. Our max offer price cash offer is $100,000. So, yeah, man, I can give you $100,000 for that property cash and closing in the next 2 weeks. How does that sound?
Man, your postcard said 120.
Man, honestly, dude, I wish I could, but I'm going to need you to help me out in order to get to that 120. Now, I can give you the 100,000 cash, but have you heard of terms?
Nah, man, I only do cash. I don't know nothing about the term stuff.
Right. Well, terms is basically you're going to seller finance me the property. I'm going to pay you a monthly payment, and being that you're a landlord, I mean, you'll still get to keep the cash flow, you know, without the headache. I mean, how does that sound? You don't have to worry about maintenance. You don't have to worry about property taxes. You don't have to worry about insurance. I handle all that for you, and you no longer have the headache of a tenant because I'm not a tenant.
You see how he went into, I pretty much told him I didn't want to do it. And we have people tell us that all the time.
You just
No, I don't
got to
even
go
know what
through
it
the
is.
objection.
Just go straight through it. Well, this is what terms looks like. You don't know how many times that people have said, no, I don't know, I don't care, I want cash. And then we've talked them into terms just by just blowing through that, right? So yeah, especially with landlords. Landlords love cash flow, but they hate being landlords, right? I feel like that's everybody. Everybody loves cash flow. Nobody wants to be a landlord. Let's be a bank. Let's be the bank, right? And that's what you'll see us focusing on more is seller financing. We have rentals, but they're very few compared to our seller finance deals, right? And so we pitch the down payment, we pitch the interest.
Yeah, I don't really pitch interest or down payment in the beginning. I kind of let them come to me with that. So
you
once
explain
again,
the strategy, but you
yeah,
let them
explain
come
the
to you.
strategy, and then you tell me.
Right. So what if I said, well, I mean, what kind of interest rate you? Well, first
Well,
off,
let's just
they say
keep
down
rolling.
payment, right?
Right. So
Well, what kind of down payment are you gonna give me?
down payment, well, you know, in order to make this fair, obviously, you know, I can get it as low as 3% down right now going through a bank. I mean, would that be fair to you?
That'd be what, $3,500, $3,000.
Roughly.
That's not really. I don't know about that.
Okay. Well, I mean, what would be fair to you then?
You said $15,000.
Man, I mean, that's kind of steep. You know, you're getting close to the incentive. I might as well just go to the bank. You know, I mean, I could meet you in the middle, say 7,500. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, I guess I can do that. What about your interest rate?
Well,
how's the interest
I
rate?
mean, banks right now are, you know, somewhere around 8%. And once again, you know, it has to be a win for me, and it has to be a win for you as well. So, I mean, I would probably say somewhere around 4%.
4%, man. That's low compared to the rates right now. I mean, I know you can go to the bank and stuff, but
Well, I
what
mean,
about?
are you paying any interest on that property right now?
No, I'm not.
So, I mean,
it's paid off.
It's I mean,
paid
come
off.
on, help me out, brother. You know, I'm trying to help you out. Help me out. What do you think, man? I mean, 4%. That's 100% return for you.
Yeah, you're right. let's do this. They're at 8%. Let's go. What about 6%?
Come on, man. I mean, help me out a little
He
bit.
does. I listen to him all the time. He does this stuff. I have such a tough time doing this, but he's so natural.
I mean, give me 5 at least.
And people will do it. Yeah. I guess I can do that. So most of the time they're gonna want to know. Like something else you can get around that with is like for me, I've got one that I'm fixing to close on this month. It's a 6.5% interest rate, but they want $2,000 a month. And I said, okay, well I can get like the actual mortgage payment should be around $1,500, right? But I said, okay, I can give you $2,000. That's fine. Because in my contract, it says that anything over that is going straight to principal, right? I'm fine with that, you know? So as long as the interest rate's down, I can come up a little bit more, and it still makes sense. Because my interest rate that I'm gonna seller finance it for is gonna be 3 to 4% more than what they're seller financing it to me for.
Yeah.
At a minimum. And when you're doing wraps, which is what you wanted to talk about, the cash flow is so much. We got some that are cash flowing $1,300 a month. And that, like, for you guys that have rental properties, you know, like, that's stupid on one property, net, after everything's paid for. That's stupid. That's why we say, like, that's why we transitioned hard. We kicked ourselves so hard when we transitioned to seller financing because we realized we should have been doing this from the beginning, right? What else? Anything else? We're not going to go into the strategy of novations, but
Yeah, talk a little bit about it. So has anybody heard of a novation?
Heard of it, but don't know.
Okay.
it's a way more advanced strategy.
Right.
I would say it's tough.
Novation just means a new contract in place of an old contract. Your old contract being the original contract that you have in place with the seller, agreeing to purchase their property, and the new contract being the new buyer, because you're going to basically assign this property somewhat, but you're putting a new contract in place, so there's not actually an assignment agreement. So a novation is something that I'll pitch typically, I mean, realistically, I like to pitch it after I've already gotten the property under contract. And I do the inspections, and I get the rehab quotes and everything, and then I go back to it, and I'm like, hey, my quotes are quite a bit higher than I initially thought they were going to be. I mean, I'm going to need your help to get this closed. And
Notice how he always says, I need your help to get this closed.
I need
Like,
your help.
Not, hey, I'm going to have to be $50,000 less than what I initially said. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, let's
I'm letting
help
them
each
know,
other out.
I mean, we're partners in this, right? You want to sell your house, I want to help you get your house sold, or I want to buy your house. So let me help you out, you help me out. But anyways, and then that's when I go into, first I'll actually try to negotiate them down. And of course, if that doesn't work, if it does work, awesome. If it doesn't, then I go into the novation. Well, look, I mean, this is what I can do. I can probably get you this price, but in order to get you this price, I'm going to have to be able to market it to my buyers. And in order to be able to market it to my buyers, and I need your permission to be able to market the property on the MLS. And at that point, you actually pitch or you show them the attorney in fact. And the attorney in fact is basically a power of attorney with one, you know, they have to show up to closing to be able to sign the HUD. So you have the authority to be able to sign all contracts, all offers on their behalf, all the way up till closing. They have to come to closing to sign the final HUD. So they still have power. So, because if they don't sign that HUD, then you don't close the deal, right? So that's what a novation is. And you can pitch it on the front end. It's a little bit harder to pitch on the front end. We've done it. I mean, we've made quite a bit of money off of novation. So, but it's always easier going back after the property's already under contract, because the property being under contract, it creates that, you know, FOMO, like I'm going to get this check. Now they're expecting it to get this check, where if you don't ever even have a contract in place, they don't really care. They'll go on to the next buyer. I mean, because you're not the only one sending them postcards. You're not the only one sending them texts. You're not the only one calling them. But when you have a contract in place, it just makes things a little bit easier.
So are you saying that no matter what you're going to do, you should get it under contract and then go back and negotiate them down a lot?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it depends realistically on the deal, but yeah, I'm one of those that's big on trying to go back and get them down.
Yeah. I think we've talked about this a lot, and I don't think, we don't think that you should be taking advantage of people. Like there's a fine line where you're just taking advantage, right? I had the opportunity with this deal that I was telling you guys about that's foreclosing at the end of the month. She had a good spread on it. She's putting a lot of money in her pocket. If I go back to her a couple of days before the end of the month and I say, hey, we're going to have to close this thing. We're going to close this thing, but I've got to be down 20 grand, $20 more thousand. Like, I don't know if I could live with myself doing that, right? She's fixing to go through foreclosure. We agreed on a price. If I get her down 5,000, 10,000, I'm fixing to make 50,000 anyways. Like, you gotta. I think you just get a bad rep if you're taking advantage of people. And that's not something that I do. That's not something we do. But if the quotes, all my quotes also came in lower than what I expected. I always run it high. So it's probably going to be more than $50,000. So I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I tried to get her down, knowing what she's going through. You know.
Yeah.
And that may not be good business, but it is to me. So.
Right.
Unless they're going through a divorce.
They are not going through a divorce. That's
I mean,
she's trying to stick it to them if they're going. It depends on the situation.
Exactly. If somebody's in foreclosure and you're already making 50 grand, why would you go back and get them down?
Yeah.
You know.
Be a decent person. Yeah.
So it just depends on the situation. If it's a wholesale and I'm only going to make 10 grand, yes, I'm probably going to try to go get them down a little bit.
Yeah.
But if I'm making $30,000, $40,000, I'm really not worried about it.
Yeah.
Even though we did do that on one deal, we're actually going to do it.
All right, so cash offer tends to be the lowest. Then we'll pitch terms. If they're not anywhere close to that, we'll go up to our max offer price. Then we'll pitch terms. Okay, well, I think I can get a little bit closer, but we're going to have to work together. Have you ever heard terms, right? And then we can typically go a little bit higher on the novations.
Depends on the condition of the property.
Yeah, it's definitely depends on the property. So, but most of the time you can go up in increments and still make the deal happen. So you realize that if I'm just pitching cash offers, I'm leaving probably more than half of the deals on the table because I'm not educated to make multiple offers, right? Think of how many more you can take down with terms. My gosh, terms are
And you can wholesale
amazing.
terms also.
You can wholesale
You
terms.
can get it under contract, get them to agree to the terms and then turn around and assign that to another investor.
Yeah.
Especially right now with rates as high as they are, if you can get a terms deal locked up at 5%,
Oh,
there's
my
going to be a lot of
goodness.
investors want that deal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say this though, when you do the cash offer, don't just jump into the terms offer. Let the seller know that you're willing to negotiate.
Yep.
So if I say 100K and they like, well, Mr. Seller, sounds like you concerned about my offer. Well, they might say, well, yeah, I am. Let me think about it. Most of the time they say, let me think about it. It's the price.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mr. Seller, I understand you want to think about it. Let me ask you this. Is it the price? Most of the time they're going to say, yeah. Then I'm going to say, okay, I understand you don't want to be at 100,000. How close can you come to this number? Then they're going to let you know if you can move on the terms or if I can try to get a cash offer in.
Right.
I've heard Brad say this too, and it brings me to tears almost every time I hear him say it. But if they say, okay, well, let me sleep on it, or hey, let me think about it. Let me talk to my wife about it. We got another one for the wife, but let me sleep on it. He says, is it over? Oh my gosh, you throw people for such a loop when you say, what? They say, what? Let me ask you, man, is it over? What do you mean, is it over? He's like, man, I hear that every single day. So, I mean, like, if you're not going to call me back or you're going to ghost me, like, let's break up right now. Let's divorce right now. Like, I mean, if you're really going to call me back, if we're really, let's set an appointment for it, right? Let's actually put it on the calendar, right? Man, to hear him say, is it over? Oh my gosh. And then, when they say, oh, let me talk to my wife about it. He says, well, yeah, I wouldn't do anything without talking to my spouse either, man. Let me ask you a question. How long have you been married? Brad's a salesman. 10, 15 years? Oh, man. So you've been sleeping in the same bed with that lady for 10, 15 years. Y'all talked about it yet? He gets to it, man. He gets to it. You got to have guts. That's one thing. Next week during our sales training Zoom, we're going to start researching the guts sales method by Claude Diamond. He's one of our mentors too. But that's another good thing about being in a group is if we've got mentors, y'all pretty much got mentors too. y'all get to ride off of those too. All right. So does anybody have any questions about sales, pitching offers? Anything? Didn't you say something about a wrap?
Oh, yeah. Can you walk through a wrap mortgage and how to structure that and put it all together?
Yeah. So basically a wrap, everybody knows what a wrap is.
Nope.
You have a mortgage with the bank, and then you turn around and you sell or finance the property on a land sale contract for deed, whatever you want to call it.
Are you talking about that, or are you talking about like seller finance here and seller finance there?
Either one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because realistically, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more to it with a seller finance and then a seller finance on the back end, but anyways, and then you obviously charge a higher interest than what the bank is charging, and you typically, I mean, most of ours are amortized over 20 years. Most of our loans are also amortized over 20 years. So in order to do this and actually make money, obviously I need to increase the price that I sell it at, right? So once again, you're buying properties off market, so you're already getting them discounted. So most of the time, even if it's a rehab property, we still try to get at least ARV for the property, and we have done that. So if we bought a property for $30,000 or $25,000, and we actually seller financed it for $130,000. So now you don't always get that, but
How hard is it to market and sell them?
oh man, it's easy. It's Facebook Marketplace. That's the only place that I have ever advertised a seller finance deal.
How do you do the servicing? Do you use a third-party loan servicer, or do you service it?
With this you don't have to. I mean, that would be more like a subject to.
Or lease option?
Right. So, but with this, no, they pay you directly. So, yeah, everything is.
So if they pay extra, do you just apply it straight to principal?
Yeah, so one thing that I like to tell them, because you will have a lot of them, man, that want to pay $100 extra here and $100 extra there. Screw that. It's a nightmare to keep up with. So, yeah, and it screws up your amortization schedule, exactly. So one thing that we'll tell them is, hey, that's great, and I don't have an issue with you putting extra towards your mortgage at all, but do me a favor, whenever you've saved up $5,000, $10,000, then bring that to me, and we'll go through the amortization and print you out a new schedule.
Right, that way you don't have to recast it.
Exactly, yeah, man, because I mean that can be a headache, especially whenever you've got 20 plus properties, man.
Yeah, for sure. And we only re-up the amortization schedule once a year. So then that's usually when we get the insurance and the taxes from them too. We try to do it all at the same time.
Yeah, unless somebody does that, brings like $5,000, and we'll give them a new amortization schedule.
Yeah. So just to go a little bit more into detail, when we get a property, we're trying to at least have a minimum. I've taken $30,000 gap. Yeah, we're a little different, but I've started taking more. So he takes nothing less than $50,000, right, in gap. So if I bought it for 100, he's selling it for 150, right? If I bought it for 100, I would take 130. For me, like in this market, I want to get it moved quick. Like he's in the position where he can sit and take a little bit longer for it to go, but for me, I want it to move, right? Like I want to do more. So, and it really just depends on your situation, what you want to do, how you want to do it. So that's our gap, that's our spread, right? And then as far as the interest rate goes, their interest rates are flexible on the contract. So we can, if we get our interest rates raised, then we can raise theirs too, right? And
we have it
always
in
try
our
to-
contract where we can raise it every 5 years up to 5 points, and we do that for our protection because of interest rates. With some of these loans, like we work with a lot of DSCR lenders, so we don't even necessarily need that, but some of our properties are financed through a local bank, and they're amortized over 20 years, but the term is only 5.
Yep.
So,
Yep, and so as far as interest rates go, we always pitch at least a minimum of 3.5% gap between what we've got it at and what they've got it at. We try to be at 4 plus, but you know, it really just depends. Go ahead.
Well, I had a question. I was telling her earlier, that still ever made was, I owned it 100%. I financed it for somebody and they gave me a large down payment. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I've owned other properties through banks. People wanted to give me a large down payment and I would finance the property for them, but I was always scared because I would think the bank would frown on that. If it's a DSCR loan, that's investor only most of the time. Do they think the same as a bank, or are they more friendly with that option? Or is it okay with that?
I mean, the local banks are fine with it too. I mean, we have had conversations with local banks where they wanted to match our terms, you know. So, not as far as like the interest rate goes, but like the length of years and all that, because we have some that, you know, that are only seller financed for 7, 10, 12 years, you know. They don't all go out. Some of them want to pay the house off as quick as they can. But they want to try to match those terms. But local banks are fine with it, man. They don't have an issue with it. They're getting their mortgage. They're making their money. That's their main concern.
You don't have to worry about them calling your loan back.
Yeah,
No,
nobody
you're right.
wants to do that. I mean, we don't want to do that to our tenants either. So,
I was just afraid I would get in the bind. I would get somebody in the house, everything's going good for 2 or 3 years. The bank says, hey, I want my property back because we didn't agree on this.
Yeah.
And I've got a situation, so I never did.
Right. Now, the main time you're going to run into that issue is like with the subject to, where you do have a loan servicer in place. And even then, whenever the bank tries to call that loan due, you can fight it, because it's like, why would you do that have I ever missed a payment? I mean, you're getting your money, you know.
yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
and
what
you
I was
can also
saying.
refinance them out at that point.
They're so deeply discounted at that point. If you're subject to them most of the time, like, you can refinance it. You know. But yeah, we've never ran into that situation. We have several friends that do seller financing too, and they've been doing it a lot longer than us. They've never ran into that issue.
Now, I know one lady that's been doing it in the North Alabama area for over 20 years, and she has never had a loan called on her.
Yeah, and the good thing, well, I guess good and bad, right, is that we do exactly what Tim Knox said. We're all over Facebook, me mostly, but like I put out videos breaking down all of our deals and stuff. So most of our bankers are friends with me on Facebook, so they see what we do, and so they don't care most of the time. So not saying you won't ever get into a situation, but I think there's very little risk with that.
Right.
That nobody wants to take a house back. I mean, that's just.
Tell you, that's great. According to y'all, I've lost out on a lot of this. But that's
Yeah.
what I'm here for. I'm here for
Right,
from
right.
for experience.
That's
For
it,
sure,
man.
man.
That's what it's all about.
Bankers is a wholesaler.
One of your bankers is also Ethan.
Coleman.
Yeah, Ethan is one of
So he knows all about what we do.
one of our students got him into wholesaling. Yeah, he was like, well, what do you do with your houses? And Dakota started telling him about it, and he was like, I want to do that. I got 2 houses. Let's do it. So, yeah, absolutely. Anything else? Good question. No question. He's just stretching.
You said you have a local bank that you like using for those. Which ones do you guys recommend?
You got to keep them on a Rolodex. So Cadence, First Community Bank of Coleman. As far as DSCR lenders, Lending One.
Lending One's our favorite.
Yeah, they're the best to work with. DSCR lenders, though, they only go up to 75% refinance. So You got to buy them right, or you got to be willing to leave some money into it. But
Yeah, I mean, DSCR lenders, they, you know, just like anything else, there's your pros and cons with them. They'll only go up to 75%, and I mean, but the pro is they do a 30-year fixed rate mortgage on commercial loans. So, but you also have to have reserves up front. Closing costs is a little bit higher than it is with your local banks. But again, you know, with a local bank, you got to refinance every 5 years anyway. So you're really saving money by spending that a little bit higher closing cost on the front end with the DSCR lender.
Yep, absolutely.
What are your interest rates right now? If you're going to get a loan, what are you paying?
The one we just had quoted was 8.43, and that was this week.
Then, so if you're refinancing this, are you charging 12%?
Yep. 11.5, 12 right now.
We've got one that's
Do that.
we've got one that's 13%. Yeah.
Well,
So a lot of the people that are, I don't want to say most, but a lot of the people that are coming to us are renting properties. And so, like for me, if they say anything about the interest rate, I say, well, how much of that rent's going towards your mortgage now anyways? I mean, do you want to own the house eventually or what, you know? I mean,
How do
So-
you set your rent price? So if you pay $150,000 for a property, what are you renting it for?
just straight out rent.
What would you rent that for if you've got $150,000 investment?
I don't do any less than 1.2%. Like a lot of people say like 1% rule, but I don't. I do no less than 1.2%. I had a realtor one time say, "Well, you don't do many deals, do you?" And I was like, "No, I do a lot of deals, man. But you're just not getting the good ones, apparently." So they're few and far between right now. But if you're doing
because of interest rates.
Yeah, if you're doing marketing, off market, that's also why we've transitioned to the seller financing too. Is like Tim said, you've got to be willing to pivot and not just stay in that because it's all you know, right? You don't need to just stay flipping because that's all you know. You need to broaden that understanding of strategy and do the seller financing deals, right? Do the novations and stuff like that. Like you got to have these tools in your tool belt, or you're going to stay stagnant and get burned out when the market changes, right? You got to shift. Good question. Yep.
So with seller financing, do you all hold taxes and insurance in escrow, or do you put that entirely on the buyer?
So, the tenant buyer does actually pay those, right? I don't escrow it for them just because I don't want to keep up with all that crap. I tell them whenever I'll pay the taxes at the end of the year, and then I'll bring the bill to you and you pay me back. Same with insurance. I do all my insurance on annually as well. So when it comes to tenant buyers,
Money to pay that at the end?
Yeah.
$4,000, they don't have a problem paying?
no, they don't have a problem with it.
No.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I've done it both directions, and I was curious because as I'm expanding, like you said, it is a headache to keep up with.
Right. Well, the reason I started it like that was because when we first started this method, we were only using the local banks, and they don't escrow any of that either. So it was just easier for me to just collect it all up front with them since I'm having to pay it all up front, right? But DSCR lenders, they do escrow. So you can do it either way.
How are you screening these potential buyers?
If they've got $20,000
Yeah.
to put down, we'll take it. If you're willing to.
That's pretty much it, man. Which, I mean, you know, you can kind of tell, man, meeting people how they are. And we haven't had any issues with ours.
Nope.
A client that I work with, that's all she does. She's got over 150 doors. All of them seller financed, and she doesn't have any issues with hers. I have run into one, the lady who had been doing it for 20 years that I mentioned earlier. They had like a cartel situation in a house in Decatur, so they did run into that. But man, most people are good. You know.
Most tenant buyers are good.
Right.
Renters, completely different subject. Yeah, definitely screen
Yeah.
renters, but they're not stepping into it with thousands of dollars.
Exactly. They're not bringing $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 down.
So that was my next question, was the down payment. Is it, that 20 grand strict or just kind of?
My thing is I want at least 10% down, right? And I will work with them. So if they've only got half, then I'll tell them, okay, well, would you be okay with catching that remaining down payment up over the course of the next 3 months? And if they say yes, then we put it in the contract like that.
Yeah. And if somebody's getting a house that they're planning on fixing up, like it needs some work, we have taken less, like $5,000 to $7,500. That's actually one of our best properties, our best 2 properties, the $25,000 ones he sold for $130,000.
Yeah.
We took $5,000 down on both of them, right? But we only put a total of $7,500 down, so we actually made a little money off the down payment. But
Well, it was a two. One of
2 for
those was a 2 for 1, and we put $10,000 down, and we got $5,000 down on both of them, so we got our initial
back.
investment back.
Yeah.
You know, and then the other one, they actually put 10 down. We put 7,500 down, and that's what we were advertising, and they were like, well, we want to put 10 down, so we took it.
So traditional financing, you're putting 40% down, right? So you're looking for at least 10%.
Yeah, I want at least 10% because most of these houses I'm not buying, so I'm not putting 10% down. I'm refinancing. I'm using somebody else's money on the purchase, right? And then I'm refinancing and pulling all my money back out. So 10% down is fine with me when it comes to a tenant buyer.
Yeah. He's using the Burr method, right?
Right.
Have you heard of the Burr method? The Burr method?
No.
Buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. So buy a house off market that's discounted. If it appraises for 100, the bank will give you 70, right, or 80.
80.
Most of the time 80. A local bank, small local banks, under 5 branches.
Lender.
Yeah. DSCR loan 75. They'll give you up to 80% cash out. So just make sure when you're running your numbers, you base it off of that 80%, not the actual ARV, right, when you're doing that. So.
Tenant buyer, I'm not sure I'm following that.
So they're kind of a tenant, but they're buying the property. So until they pay the property off, it's
rent
kind
own.
of a rent to own.
Yeah, it's a lot more strict than a rent to own.
Yeah.
Bigger contract for sure.
So is it primarily you want to finance because you don't want to deal with the renter? You don't want that headache?
I don't want to be a landlord at all.
It's bigger cash flow and less headache.
The cash flow is ridiculous. Like on average, the average rental property, when we were using the Burr method, buying with other people's money, refinancing at 80%, 75%, we were making around $200 to $250 a door. That's cash flow after everything's said and done, paid, right? On these, we're making $600 to $800 to $1,300 a month on these things after everything's said and paid for. Hey, just based on that, I'll do seller financing all day long. But these people don't call us to tell us about the squeaky toilets or the leaky doors, right? They don't bother us. And if something happens, like I had 2 this past winter, the pipes busted on them, and they called me. They called me and said, "Hey, what do we do?" And I said, "Okay, well, the interest, or not the interest. What's the premium for the insurance? The upfront?
Oh, the deductible.
The deductible's $1,500. I'll send a contractor out there, and he'll get you a quote. If it's under $1,500, you got it. If it's over $1,500, you got to pay for the deductible, and the insurance will cover it all, right? So, when you have an issue with your house, do you call the bank and say, "Hey, I got something wrong with the house"? So.
Yeah.
So with appreciation, I mean, just everything, inflation, everything going up.
Yeah.
Appreciation, inflation. So if you've got a rental property, you rent it for 10 years, let's say, but that property value now tripled in value. I don't know, in my little brain, and I'm a little slow sometimes, but to me that.
Yep.
But and I haven't crunched the numbers to see, okay, what would you have made if you financed that in the 10-year period?
That's a good.
And then they bought it.
A lot.
7 years or whatever.
That's a good question.
It is a good question, but I mean, I'm not saying don't buy rental properties or single-family homes as rentals, because if it's in a good area, I might buy that thing and rent it out, man, and capitalize on that appreciation in 5 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I'm not saying don't do that, but most of the properties that we buy are not in the best areas, so they're not gaining that appreciation that you're thinking of, right? So we seller finance them. But, I mean, think about it. Have you ever looked at an amortization schedule?
That's what I was gonna say. on a $150,000 house, we're going to make probably over $300,000 on it.
Right.
So you get all the cash flow and you get that gap, and like for me, like that's worth it. And then also, if you notice, he said that he's selling them for ARV at this time, right? So we're selling them top of the market right now, and that's because we know that they're going to go.
They're going to get that appreciation.
So even if they need work to get to that ARV, we're still selling them at ARV because they're going to get the
But
appreciation.
technically, we're
anyways.
still making more than appreciation on that interest.
Yeah.
Do you have to disclose to them that, like, you know, there's a first lien on that property ahead of you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's part of the contract too. I mean, you know, I've seen some shady contracts. In fact, we ran into some particular buyers who had been through a shady transaction before, and they were nervous. So our contracts do. I mean, they protect us, but they also protect the buyer. So they understand through that contract we can never go and borrow more than they owe on the property.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Have you had any go south, any deals, just nobody's, they've all,
That,
I mean, obviously they've got an invested interest, so they're a little more
That's it.
reliable than
Yeah.
your typical renter.
That's it. Yeah. We've never had anything go south. His person that's been doing it for 20 years has only had one go south. Like, they're pretty. The thing is they're pretty locked in. You know, they got that big down payment in.
I mean, they may decide to sell it at some point.
Yeah,
you know,
it's assignable. Like, it's assignable for us. It's assignable for them.
they
So,
have to get permission.
Yeah, they got.
Yeah.
So like, there's nothing shady. Like he said, we've seen a bunch of shadiness with creative financing. Don't be that person that's only going to give them 1 to 2 years to pay off the whole house. You can't do that. But we stretch it out for 20 years. We make sure we work with them on their payments and their down payments where it fits. We don't want to take these houses back. It would be like very, very profitable business if we took the houses back, redone it, took the houses back. But I mean, what kind of a person, do you have to be to do that, right? So you gotta, it's just so much better.
The lady in North Alabama you mentioned that has 150 doors, what is she primarily seller financing? Is she buying apartments? Is she buying
It's all single-family homes.
houses?
No, hers is a little different. Ours is a little bit more distressed property. She buys them directly off the MLS.
Yeah.
And seller finances them.
It's like we've had this conversation
Freaking headache.
before.
I'm not going to go into all that.
Right.
I don't recommend it.
You can
but
do
that's
that.
what she does.
You can do it, and the houses are a lot better. But when the market shifts, I mean, as of right now, you're way overpaying on the MLS as an investment property. So we've talked about it before, like what happens when that shift happens, and what's that going to look like for her? But for us, like I said, you got to have multiple exit strategies. We're not just buying these things and they make sense as seller finance deals. We're getting them discounted enough to where if we couldn't get a tenant buyer, we could flip it. We could float everything on the rent. Like, it's got to make sense in multiple different avenues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking this lady, if she's financing them and she's on the 4% difference there that she's charging interest, I mean,
Yeah, she's
got to be that's a big number a month.
right. Yeah, well, not to mention she's upcharging $20,000. So, she.
I'm just thinking, how's she doing that? How's she pitching this to?
She's good at it, man.
She educates people.
She educates
You got to
people.
really educate people
Right.
on this when you're doing this.
I
Like,
can see it more on a lower income.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for us, we try to stay around $180,000 or less on the resale.
Yep.
So
After
where
you-
she'll go up to 300 plus.
Yeah. After you get past the 200 mark, it don't matter where it's at. It sits for a minute. You
Yeah.
got to really.
Unless
really
you
focus
have
on
a specific buyer.
Yep. Absolutely. Good question. Yep.
So how do you guys
I
feel
knew
about
this was gonna have a lot of questions.
as a seller?
So what now?
How do you feel about balloon loans as a seller? So like 20 years amortized with 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of some of the contracts that I've seen that have gone south. I don't do that. Are you talking about on me buying it or me? Yeah, I don't do that, man.
Is there too much risk in it?
It's just you're in my opinion, you're just making it hard on them. You're setting them up for failure, and I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
So But I mean, I ain't saying you can't do it. It's all, you know, it's how you feel. It's your own personal convictions. Just me personally, I don't do that.
Okay, you, like, retracted your emotions from it completely and your ethics, right? Which I'm not saying I would do that.
Right.
But that then, I mean, the math works.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, there's banks that have loans like that.
Right.
So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it if you're okay with it. Yeah, sure. I mean,
You guys mentioned 5-year APRs before.
mhm.
So is there any reason you don't do it annually? Like, adjustable interest rate savings?
Yeah, it's just because that's the way it's set up at the bank. Our rates are locked in for 5 years, therefore I feel like theirs should be locked in for the same amount, right?
Plus you have 140 houses, like,
Yeah.
that's gonna be a
Yeah,
headache.
it can get to be a headache and hard to keep up with.
But on the buying end of it, like when we go to buy, that's another thing that we'll tell people, hey, in 5 years, what we can do is we can refinance you out and give you your money back, or if you like the cash flow, then we can keep going, right? But that's a selling point for us to buy on terms too. So.
That was one of the thoughts on the balloon loan was to say, hey, you know, we can keep going, renegotiate the
Yeah.
loan out for the remainder, or, you know, we can revive and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got one right now that
We do have it the opposite. They cannot pay it off
yeah.
in less than 5 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So like the one that I've got right now, I've got to pay her off in 3 years. But I got it like $120,000 less than what it's worth right now, and it's in an A area. So right, it's just great, man. You don't have to deal with banks for 3 years. Good deal. I'll take that.
So you wouldn't let them come pay it off if they inherited, mama dies, gets
Not in less than 5 years, no.
5 years.
money, year 3, let them pay it off?
They
yeah,
can.
yeah.
They can. They can pay it off in year 1 if they want to. They're just responsible to pay me the full interest for that 5 years.
You wouldn't take it off the,
Right.
and that's all in the contract.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a plug for you guys. Like, we don't have this contract templated. Our attorney does it for $600 every single time we have one. And I prefer to keep it that way because if an attorney's willing to draw up a contract, then he's willing to back it in court, right? So I'll pay that $600, and guess what? The tenant buyers pay closing costs, so that $600 gets added
Yeah.
into closing costs. Right?
Yeah.
All right.
Are you guys willing to share the attorney that you're gonna use?
Yes, absolutely. Terra Title. Brent.
Terra Title, Brent
Hieronymi.
Hieronymi, out of Ardmore, Alabama.
Yep.
Terra Title, Brent Hieronymi.
They were supposed to be here
Yeah.
today, but
They're in Ardmore, Alabama.
it's just them two, just Brent and Betsy.
Yeah, it's a
And-
mom and pop shop, mama and papa.
Yeah. That's the way, like, same with banks. Like, we only deal with banks that have less than 5 branches. Like, when they say I got to run it up the ladder, like, that's in the office next to them, not in the office in New York, right? So you got a much better relationship with these guys.
You said that's in Ardmore, is that Tennessee or Alabama?
It's Alabama, yeah. If you've been to Ardmore, you've seen Rab's Furniture. He's in the same shopping center right there before you get to Sonic.
They also do Tennessee too. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, I love it.
So on the back end, from a tax standpoint, when you do seller financing, are you putting in your taxes pretty similar to rent? Because you're not getting the whole payment as if you're selling the house up front, you're getting it spread out. So how does that look like from a tax standpoint?
I forgot, real quick, we're not giving legal advice. Just letting y'all know,
Yeah,
we're just giving
you really need to talk to your CPA about that. But yes, you do pay gains on the interest you accrue. But I haven't been through this scenario yet, but there's multiple guys that I've talked to that they charge it just like rent, and they've actually been audited by the IRS. One guy's been audited 3 times, and they could not find any reason why he couldn't do it the way that he was doing it. So, because he had a turnover rate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he does
he does a little bit different than what we do. But so he has a higher turnover rate. You know, the average American buys or sells a house every 2 to 5 years, right? Well, his turnover rate's just like the average American. So he's able to calculate. He's able to, count that as rent, not gains.
Good
So,
question.
not saying do that.
Yeah.
Talk to your CPA.
Yeah. If there are two things that you need to learn from this is get a good real estate attorney and get a good real estate CPA.
Yeah.
Bookkeeper.
Is there a good CPA for real estate that you guys know that's still accepting patients?
No.
Not patients, but clients.
Patience, I like that.
Patience, yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. No, they hate us because we got like 15 different entities, but we've sent students to them. We use a company out of Florida. Actually, I do got one for you. I don't remember can you take down my number and just text me? 931-309-1648. Y'all can text me if you want to. Yeah, just text me that, and I'll share her contact info with you. Her name is Tony. She's a bookkeeper, but they do all of it. They got the resources to do all of it. Yeah. Great questions. Anything else? Lunch should be here around 12:30. But John's got to leave. He's got some family stuff going on.
No, my Nana's turning 90 today, and we're throwing her birthday party. I don't want to miss that.
Family's the most important. The most important. So we were going to do case studies towards the end to just kind of talk about some of the deals that we do, but I moved it up so that he can talk through his deals. These are some deals that we've just done recently. So let's see, Bruner Street, that's John's.
Yeah. So Bruner Street came from a postcard from REI Print Mail. Actually, it didn't come from the postcard. It came from the seller because I actually bought 2 houses from him. And that was one of those things, hey, do you have any more houses? And he did.
Bam.
So the other one's still on the market, Bruner Street. I bought it for $51,500. I literally paid $500 to have this house cleaned, threw it right back on the market, and made $37,000 off of it. I sold it for $100,000. So after hard money and everything, I made $37,000.
That's the kind of flips we're looking for.
So you closed it out, it wasn't wholesale, I guess you closed it out,
Mhm.
the company listed it, whatever,
Yep.
sold it outright.
Yep. Didn't do any work to it.
That's
You may talk about this a little bit later.
That's what you call a hotel.
yeah. Not a
Hotel
hotel.
is basically
Not a hotel.
you.
Hotel.
Yes, you buy the property, it needs $5,000 or less, right? And then you just turn around and list it and put it in the MLS.
You may elaborate on this later, if you do, just tell me, we'll get there later. But do you ever 1031 these, or?
No, I mean, you get, I could be wrong on this, but you've got to hold a property for so long before you can 1031 it. And, right, and I have,
Typically 12 months.
Yeah, 1 to 2 years. They have to see that it's an investment, not just sitting there for years.
yeah, and these obviously aren't, because I'm literally buying them, and hopefully in less than a week is my goal to get it on the MLS.
Yeah. The same guy that's doing those turnover seller finance deals, he made a statement one time. He was like, who cares about paying taxes when I make all this money?
Yeah.
I was like, that's a good point, man. I mean,
Yeah.
Grant Cardone wouldn't like that, but you know. But all right.
So is the difference between a whole tail and a novation that the novation you never actually close on?
Yeah.
Until, okay.
Yeah, the novation is just simply a contract in place of a contract. You never actually close on it. It's just shy of a wholesale.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some title companies won't even do that, am I correct?
You got to educate them.
You got to educate them.
Most people.
Maybe they just don't do it because they're not educated.
Right, exactly.
But wholesaling was like that not long ago. You had to, like, there's still, Lawrenceburg, where you guys are at, I doubt that many people know about wholesaling over there as far as, like, attorneys go. So I always, like, when I'm in little podunks like that, like, even Pulaski, like, I've had to educate them on what an A to B, B to C closing is. It's like, I just don't want to be in the same room, man. Actually, I don't even want to show up anymore, but just send me the money.
Right.
But yeah, you just got to educate people. All right, anything else about that? Any questions about that deal?
That type of house where you only pay for basically having it cleaned, are those few and far between?
Yeah, not really. I mean, the other one's the same thing. The other property that I bought from him, it's on the MLS right now. All I did was I replaced the kitchen flooring and cleaned it, and that was it. So, and that one, I mean, I'm not going to make quite 37, but I'm still going to make around 25 on that one.
Yeah. That's the kind of flips we like. That's a fact.
I have a question. So you said you used hard money on it? Why didn't you use why did you prefer to use hard money instead of your money?
I don't have to risk my money.
Yeah.
You prefer not to?
Yeah, I prefer to use somebody else's money anytime I can.
So all your experiences with hard money have been good, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
I've just heard
Oh, yeah.
different stuff, so I always
Right, and I do have some of my money in the deal. So, because with hard money, I mean, you're required to bring a 10% down payment. Plus, you still have closing costs.
Unless you're good at negotiating.
Yeah, unless you're good at negotiating. But, when I do, like this one, I think I put 5% down. So I did talk him down on the down payment. But, yeah, I mean, you do still have some skin in the game. But by using hard money lenders, I can buy a whole lot more of these and move quicker versus using all of my own money.
The thing is that you don't need to be like, you see all these people on Facebook that are like, that DM you because you're in real estate groups, like VAs from all over the place, and then, lenders that you have no clue. What you need to do is you need to talk to the people in this room that are doing deals and say, hey, because I'm going to tell you, a majority of real estate investors, I don't care how big they're doing it, they're using other people's money, right? Because nobody wants to risk their own money. When you go through.
Well, think about Grant Cardone. What does he own? Grant Cardone Capital. What is that? Other people's money.
Yeah. So just talk to these guys, see who they use. I always go through referrals. I actually flew a guy out from Utah to come to our office in Ardmore, Tennessee, because we're on the Tennessee side. He was in a mastermind with me. He flew out to meet us, and he does a lot of lending for all of our students and stuff like that. So that's why I always say, and we're not even really going to talk about lending, because if you've got a deal, you don't have to use me, but call me, and I can point you in the direction of 5 hard money lenders that I trust and I've done multiple deals with.
Yeah.
So just use your network to
worry about finding the deals, not the money.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Because I feel like I struggle with finding the money. I can find the deals and I'll just use my money. So now I'm at the point where I don't have so much money.
Did you take down his number?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have an issue finding money.
Yeah, you just reach out. Yep.
Private money, what would you prefer, hard money or
Well, we've got access to both, but I mean, private money is just better because typically you can get better rates, right? Private money is typically going to be from somebody who's not in the lending world, not in the real estate world, so they don't know what these hard money lenders are charging, and they just want to make a little bit more money than they're making in their CD, you know what I mean, or their 401k.
Yeah, we had a hard money lender cut us off at $3 million, I think, 2 or 3 million. 2 million. And I was like, crap. He was the only hard money lender I knew at the time. It was when we were first getting started. And so I was talking to one of my buddies about it, and this dude, he's got money. I wasn't planning on pitching it to him. I was planning on pitching it to him as a partnership, but I was like, man, I need $100,000 to close this deal. I need some rehab money. The guy cut me off, and he was like, oh, I can do that. I can give you $110,000. And I was like, man, my mindset shifted at that point. And I put a post out on Facebook. I want to talk to anybody who, has any type of money in the 401k or savings account that's not making money, making good returns. Let's talk, right? And less than 3 hours, I raised over $500,000 just by that one post. People have money that's just sitting there. You've just got to have the courage to reach out and ask, right?
Yeah.
And that was something that I had never thought of until that point. So.
And are you paying simple interest on that money?
Yeah, on some of them, yes.
Yeah.
On some of them. 1.25%. Well, some are 1.25%, some are 1.75% per month. Some are 2 points up front. Some are 3 points up front. The guy that we brought in from Utah, we've kind of talked with him and told him what most of our hard money lenders do, and he's made it extremely competitive. Yeah, competitive. New word. So that's kind of what we're working to right now. But when you don't have the money, you got to use somebody else's money. And even if I had the money, I'd still use other people's money, because I always tell students, no matter what, like on our onboarding, no matter how much money you got or how much equity you got in your own house, like use that for marketing, because we can get you the money somewhere else.
Yeah.
Use your money to build your business. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Anything else? Any other questions? All right. Next. 8th Avenue. I just closed that last week or the week before last?
Week before last.
Week before last. This is the one I was telling you guys about when I was talking to Tim. It took me, I got it from a text message. He texted me and said he had a realtor that was going to go look at it. Time is of the essence, right? Because realtors are going to tell you, you can get $300,000 for this house in this market right now. Sorry to all you realtors. Find that common ground, right? Anyways, so she told him that he could get a lot more than what I told him I would give. But I took that realtor, the realtor that I'm friends with. I said, hey, I just want you to go with me to look at the initial appointment, because this is not normally a house that I would buy. Like, that's not a price range I would buy at. But I knew that he had some buyers that are out of state that would buy something like that and just float it with rent, right? So I took him with me, and we spent the longest time working on this deal was spent in the kitchen with that guy. The realtor was talking to him. I was playing with the kid in the corner, like that she was eating and playing. So I think that rapport that we built with those people in that kitchen was the reason he went with us, because the realtor told him that he could definitely get a lot more. But we agreed to that 177. We agreed to 170, and he actually come back and talked me up. But you know, it's $13,000. We assigned it for $190 to that realtor's buyer, and made $13,000. The realtor got $3,000 of that, and I made $10,000, and didn't have to do anything. So, any questions about that? Oh, you first.
How did you get a builder to only take 3%, or $3,000? You found the deal?
I did find the deal, but he's a how do I want to say this? Tim's not in here right now, right? We partnered together on it. Yeah, he yeah.
So much business through it.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's looked at 3 of my properties in the past 2 weeks to assign or to list, and he's looked at way more of that for John. So like, he could literally probably just work for us and make really, really good money. So.
So basically, you made that deal right there in the kitchen to buy it for the 177 and sell it?
No.
Oh, okay, that
No.
was coming.
Yeah.
You just kind of, you and your realtor had that?
Yeah. So we got it under purchase. Well, I didn't get it under contract for anything until he said, okay, well, I think I can get 190 for it, right? And I was like, okay, well, that's good enough for me. So I sent him a purchase agreement. My purchase agreement says that we can market it, we can do pretty much whatever while we're under contract. And so he pitched it to his buyer, and it took him like a week to run the numbers 3 or 4 times and decide he wanted to do 190. But I mean, that's literally all that happened. He signed that one piece of paper saying he was going to step in, and we didn't even close together. So I came in like an hour early with the seller, signed, and then they came in within an hour and signed to buy it. And I just took a check home for $10,000.
This new Alabama wholesale law,
Good question.
did you double close, or?
Nope.
Did you have any trouble with him knowing?
Nope.
correspondence fee?
So we have been through this quite a bit with our attorney. Because we have so many students in Alabama, like we've got to be on top of that, right? I worry more about my guys' deals than I do my deals. So we sat down with our attorney several times. We went over exactly what we needed to do. We've got some extra paperwork. And for me, what I do is I send all my contracts through DocuSign. And so I throw that in at the very end so it looks like it's a part of that purchase agreement. And so they sign it. I hadn't had an issue yet. Yeah, you got to give them a notice within 72 hours.
72-hour notice of assignment.
Yeah, who knows that you're going to do that, right? Be able to do that. That's why I always get it up front, and it says 72-hour notice of assignment, blah, blah, blah. Most of the time, they don't even read it. No.
Just one.
They don't even have to sign it. You just got to show them, right?
Yeah, you just got to let them know technically. That's a gray area, man.
Yeah.
And until somebody gets sued, it'll continue to be a gray area. But as of now, you just got to show them the assignment or the notice, and if they don't sign it, I mean, that's on them. That's the reason I would recommend emailing it, though.
Why did they even pass this law in the first place?
No.
Wholesalers.
No. Wholesalers.
Wholesalers. We done it to ourselves.
Yeah.
Not us. But yeah,
Realtors, I know a lot of realtors are.
people complain about it. Yeah, that's for sure.
Especially since some
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's dirty though. Yeah, it's dirty. Some people are dirty. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm going through it right now. Like, this flip that I was telling y'all about, the $50,000 flip, it's got a lien on it from a wholesaler in Murfreesboro. I know who they are. We've talked to them already and everything like that. We've paid off liens before with wholesalers, right? But the contracts that they put together, there's no what is it?
There's no
expiration
expiration.
date. Like,
And which is already illegal in Alabama anyway.
So-
Contracts, real estate contracts in Alabama are supposed to have an expiration date. And they can't be unreasonable. So that was another issue, is that the contracts that did have expiration dates, they were like 90 years.
So, yeah, don't be dirty.
So are you talking to this guy in Murfreesboro, or did your attorney?
Your attorney can. I just knew these people, so I called them. They have been giving me the runaround, but for example, we've got one that we seller financed about a year ago, and Evan from Red Key, he had a lien on it. Evan's a good friend of mine, really good friend of mine, and we got started together. And I called Evan when the attorney said it was Red Key. I was like, oh. So I called Evan. I was like, hey, I know you got this deal for a lot less than I got it for, but I need you to let go of that lien. And I was like, we can try to work something out. You know, and we went through it back and forth for like 2 or 3 days, but we ended up just paying him out and taking it over. So, yeah, it's tough. Your attorney can take care of it, but if you know the person. Then. Any other questions? Again, we are not giving legal advice. We're just up here looking good for you guys. All right, next. Brad. This is Brad's deal. We do deals together and we do deals separately. So we've got entities together, we got entities apart. It really just depends on what makes sense for us, you know. So this is actually one Brad just closed. And he assigned it to one of our students.
That's why you begin the coaching program.
Bam. So something really special about this deal is, like, I want to talk about what you had it under contract for first, right? What'd you have it under contract for first?
Like 100, 110,
110?
She wanted 110, I negotiated it to 100.
So he had it under contract for 100, and then he got it back down after he knew who the end buyer was going to be. Like, that's, again, why it's important to network with other people, other investors, and be in groups of other investors, because it's not often that a lot of the students are in here right now, it's not often that we sell our properties outside of the group. Fair evaluation, right? So, so you had it at 110, or she wanted 110, you got it locked up for 100. You knew who the end buyer was, which was Dakota, and they said, hey, this is where we're at. You wasn't going to make anything, so you went back to the buyer and got her down another $20,000. So how did you? I remember you talking about how hard this situation was. Like, it was a hard seller, right? So how did that? What did that look like?
As far as
That conversation where you're like, hey, I got to be at 80. That's a hard conversation to have, I would say, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just kind of told her, hey, it's a little bit more work than we anticipated, which it was, honestly. So I wasn't lying. You know, I mean, that was it. But she was in a situation. This is a lady that I like doing deals like this, where I'm able to help people. She was in a situation where mom had died, and her mom was in a land sale contract. Well, when her mom died, property went to her, but they only had to this year to pay it off, and we had like 30 days or so, and she was gonna lose the house, and she was gonna lose all her money, her daughter was gonna lose her money, so, I mean, that's pretty much how the deal went.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so the daughter still made 40, right?
Yeah, they still made 40 grand, so everybody, it was a win-win for everybody.
That's awesome.
Me and the buyer.
Yep. You are a transactional engineer. Yeah.
That's our question. So with these types of sales, do you guys pay for an inspector to come in? When you said like, oh, it needs more work than we anticipated, did you pay for an inspector to come in, or that's just after you looked at the property?
Yeah, that was after I looked at the property.
And that depends on the deal. Some deals, yes, we do get contractors and inspectors in there beforehand, and some deals, we just walk the property personally.
Yep. And that comes along with your confidence and looking at
Right.
deals too, right? So, like when I was first getting started, anything I even looked at and made an offer on, I had an inspector there with me. But now it's like I can walk through and pretty much tell what's going to be going on. If I'm going
Yeah.
to flip it, I'm going to get an inspector. If I'm going to buy it long term, I'll still get an inspector. But if I'm going to seller finance it or wholesale it or whatever, then I won't worry about it.
Right.
Anything else? Under contract for 80, assigned. How long did it take you to do that deal?
I'd say right at 28 days.
Yeah. Postcard.
It was postcard, yeah.
All right. Next. Anybody else? Questions? My favorite one. You can't see the water, but it's pitch black. The water is disgusting. Jordan Road. We got it under contract. It was a postcard, $93,000.
Well, we got it under contract at 100. We went and got him down
Yeah.
to 93.
I signed it for 150 to Flip Boss King. Pimp, I don't know. He's a coach too, and his Facebook is like Flip Boss something. I don't know.
Football something.
He's
yeah.
good. It's a long title. It's funny. We always laugh at it, but he's a great guy. Him and his family are like very, very, very great people. $57,000, and if you can tell, it is a mess in there. It is just, it's terrible. So they had to do a big rehab on that one. So not only are they gonna flip it, are they gonna flip it?
No, they're not flipping it.
It was their daughters.
They bought it for their daughter.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna ask, was this
Yeah.
the one their daughter moved into?
Yeah, so they bought it for their daughter. So that's an emotional buy, right? I mean, obviously they know what they're doing, but they bought this thing for their daughter. So, any questions? Any
I
questions?
was gonna couple on the end of this, I think he posted that they had it appraised for like 300,000.
Yeah.
That's,
Like
yeah.
all summer, they worked on it as a family, and I think all in, they were like 180, and they had it appraised for 300.
Mm-hmm.
That's
That's
it.
about what our numbers came back at, was around
Yep.
315.
You got to create win-win situations. We probably could have got way more for that, but you got to create win-win
Yeah,
situations.
that's 57K is a pretty good number for about 2 weeks.
Right.
Worth of waiting. Very little.
Going through Bill's TV. Bill's TV. That dude had over 150 TVs in that house. He was our TV repair guy.
Yeah.
So many TVs. But I mean, that's what I continue to say. You can't be greedy. Like me and Casey went and looked at a house the other day, and there was no way I was going to be able to do anything with that thing. And then she said, I got a contractor that may buy it. And I was like, okay, well, it needs to be tore down, right? And we're only going to make like $5,000 a piece. Like, I'll take that deal any day. If I just drive to Decatur and look at a house and text Casey and say, hey, what do you think about this? And she's got a buyer and we can split $5,000 all day long. I'll do it all day long. Base hits. Base hits are what you need to be focused on. The big deals, they come.
They come, not that often.
Don't be greedy. All right. With all that being said, that is sales and case studies. Any questions about anything we discussed or anything else as of right now? We are a little behind schedule, which I didn't think we'd be.
Basically, it took like a month somebody with a 9-to-5 job, what kind of time cycle are we talking about?
Man, honestly, we were, each one of these deals, I mean, Wyatt's had 20 minutes roughly. I mean, well, I'd say more than that because of his drive to Decatur.
Yeah,
So,
I live in Pulaski, so
about,
it's a little bit
what,
further.
2 hours?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, this deal that we made $57,000 on, less than 8 hours of work.
Yeah.
I mean, right. So a wholesale and a hotel, realistically, it's going to be less than 8 hours. A flip, you might put more time in, depending on if you're doing anything or not. But it's literally time on the phone. Time on the phone and time on the road.
Yep.
That's it.
For me, like, I really pride myself in this. Like, we take out all the BS. Like, when I meet with you, like, if you're looking to get into our coaching program, when I meet with you, like, we're talking about the action items you need to take that day to get deals coming into you that day or within that week or two, right? Depending on what kind of marketing you're going to be doing for your pay. And, like, that's it. That's what you need to be focused on. Our students get their first deal on average. Where's Gatlin at? I'll say on average. On average, 60 to 90 days, right? But it really depends on what you're going to put into it, right? And it depends on, I mean, it only depends on you.
Emmanuel was what, 33 days or
I
something like
had
that?
to beg Emmanuel to get in our program. Like, I was going to tell this story a little bit later, but Emmanuel kept coming to my office. We knew each other from way back when. He's like, hey, I need to come talk to you about this deal. And he kept showing up. And I was like, one day I was just like, nope, you can call me or you can join our coaching program, man, because, and it was like pulling teeth. It was like another 2 weeks. And then he was like, I guess I'm going to join. And 30 days. What was your first assignment? In 30 days. Yeah, I don't know if he wants to.
Yeah, I think it was right around 30 days.
How much do you care to share how much you made? Yeah. So, yeah, Emmanuel wholesaled Zach his first property. You know, they're both in the group. And then, fun story, which we're going to talk about this more later too. Zach actually wholesaled Emmanuel his first seller finance deal. So pretty cool. It's grown into something that I never thought it would, and it's very, very awesome, and I love to be a part of it. So I'm really proud of it. All right, so that's all we got up here with you guys.
See, what time is it?
Good tell Nana I said we're 30 minutes over. Lunch is ready in the lobby. We're a little over. So we'll take lunch, and then we'll have Nick and Adam come up afterwards, after lunch. If that's cool with you guys. Cool?
Huh?
Lunch is subs. The hotel provided it. Oh.
They'll charge Wyatt.
Yeah. Yeah. Be back in here at 1, and we'll get rolling.
What's going on, man?